All right, Ryan, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. Yeah. I started with the Dave and Buster's brand actually in February of 1999. Kind of stumbled into this industry, moved to Chicago, located this beautiful building named Dave and Buster's, never stepped foot in the property. And after, kind of a quick conversation, had the opportunity to join that team. And little did I know my career would kind of start to develop itself at that point. So started in Chicago as an hourly team member, as a bartender.
Yep.
Quickly was able to start opening new locations for the brand. Found myself moving to San Diego, California, which isn't too bad of a trade-off from Chicago to San Diego, especially during the winter months. Quickly moved into the management program, our MIT program, management training program. Landed me in the Bay Area in San Jose. Kind of climbed the ranks there, if you will, and became an AGM, the assistant general manager of our San Jose location. Met my wife in the Bay Area. She happens to be from the Dallas, Texas area, which just so happens to be the home of Dave and Buster's. So we relocated to Dallas in 2004. Was the general manager of the original Dave and Buster's, the store number one
Oh,
in
wow.
Dallas for quite some time. Got to work every day with both Dave and Buster for several years, and obviously learned a ton from their entrepreneurial spirit and really focus on hospitality and really taking care of people. Transitioned to the corporate office in 2006 and was a part of the training, writing curriculum for both hourly and management and facilitation. Quickly took over the sales department for private event sales.
Yep.
Made a quick jump to Top Golf, which is, I'm sure, a brand you're familiar with, from 2013 to 2017.
Here on Saturday.
There you go. Made my return back to Top Golf and from Top Golf to Dave and Buster's in 2017 in the role I'm in today. So I lead the Ops X excellence team here at Dave and Buster's, which really, we primarily, work to remove roadblocks for the field, right? Whether it's management, hourly team members, we serve as the liaison in our support center to really structure strategy and initiatives that make it out to the field, and really, are true partners with our field. Our guest is every one of the team members in the field today. And that's really how we go about kind of our day to day is, how can we improve not only the team member experience, because we know that ties together with the guest experience overall.
Yeah, it's unreal. And I mean, like what I was reading online earlier, that like the number of locations, I mean, that you guys have under your belt, was it 150 plus locations now, Dave and Buster's?
That is
Or
correct. That is correct. We're in a sprint of 5 locations opening in 4 weeks in December. So we were Lafayette, Louisiana opens today. Atlantic City, Henderson, Nevada, and South Austin open in the next 2 weeks. So we're bringing home the holidays in the real way.
That's unbelievable. And you mentioned like roadblocks, as a word there. Like I'm curious, like to take like, you're scaling so quickly. Like what do you think are like on your remit, what are your three biggest roadblocks?
I think technology is a double-edged sword, because everybody anticipates technology serving its purpose in different ways. Whether it's tech-enabled hospitality, which is important to us, is that combination of human interaction with our guest experience with technology kind of enhancing that experience. And I think the challenge is really twofold. Obviously, every guest isn't created equally in terms of their understanding and their ability to process how to use technology to enhance their experience. And really, second is our team member, right? Everybody learns at a different rate. They retain certain things. They might anticipate technology working in a certain way that it might not suit their need or suit their skill set off the get-go. So I think getting over some of those hurdles to really understand how you can maximize technology to enhance the guest experience and the team member experience, I think, is the key. But those are definitely roadblocks that we see. We're a fast growing company. You'll hear tomorrow, we have our earnings call. You'll hear about all our new stores that we plan for 2014 and beyond. We just launched a new location in Friendswood, Texas, which is a new look and feel of a Dave & Buster's. So my point there is everything is moving very quickly, right? So,
Yeah.
it's quick. You have to be agile, and you have to, you be thorough in terms of your deployment and how you really implement systems out into the field.
That's, it's very interesting you say that, because I think a lot of it, like I hear this a lot from operators like yourself as well, that it's like that fine line between the human and the technology element of it, be it like curbside, be it like online, be it like the actual data analytics that go into the restaurant operation in and of itself. And it's interesting to me because you say that's like the biggest sort of challenge or roadblock that you have, because I hear all the time from a lot of people, like staffing, for example, like people talk to me
Sure.
nonstop about that. And I'm like, whoa. And so it's very interesting to hear you say like the technology. Is that because you guys are really trying to be at the forefront of like pushing, like, or not pushing the envelope, but like looking at new technology and like how does that serve guests, and thus you kind of are on that fine line? Or like, why do you think it's like such a big roadblock for you?
Well, I think a couple of things, right? So this past Saturday, December 2nd, we celebrated our 41st anniversary as a brand. And that's obviously a highlight. And, as being the trailblazers in the industry, really, of bringing food and beverage and an entertainment component together, our guests look at us to innovate, right? We were really the first large scale arcade, under one roof that brought that combination. And we feel like, we're generationally balanced. Our prime target, of course, is 21 to 34 year olds, but still, those 10 years ago, those 21-year-olds are now 31, and they might have a family and have a kid. So that starts really the new generation, right? So that's the power, I feel, of this brand is, you have to continually differentiate, innovate, find different ways to not only drive our guest base back into the four walls, but how do you enhance dwell time? What are other attractions you can bring to the table that might be out of the ordinary Dave and Buster's experience that they remember 10 years ago when you were much younger, and had
Yeah.
a really a different focus of when you went to enjoy Dave and Buster's, and how you used us, whether it was just sitting at the bar having drinks with a couple of buddies watching TV and watching a game, or do you go solely, are you a gamer and you solely only come in and game? Do you come to eat, or do you come to do really all four of our
Yeah.
pillars, which is eat, drink, play, and watch?
You made a very fascinating point there, and it reminded me of something. Back in the day, I used to work as a quote unquote design consultant, innovation,
Okay.
whatever. There's so many like fun names to it, which my friends always laugh at still about my LinkedIn. But I remember I did a project years ago, and we were chatting with Disney, and I was in the theme park, and I was in there, and I kind of thought, wow, it kind of looks a bit rough and ready, like, in the sense that like it looked kind of, it felt old to me. And I asked one of the people at Disney, I was like, why does it feel like old? And they were like, because you got Universal and all the other theme parks, and you're like, wow, these are all brand new, these are amazing. And the lady said to me, she said, like you came here with your parents, and it's likely your parents came with their parents. And it's like that nostalgia line that they're trying to like manage, which is that like, you want that experience for your kid, when you bring your kids to Disney. And it's interesting you
Absolutely.
mentioned that when you think about, and obviously, Dave and Buster is like fundamentally it's not Disney, but I mean the concept of that nostalgia line. You're like, people could have come 10 years ago when they were 21, and what's their experience then versus their experience now, and they're still coming. And what's that sort of nostalgia thread, that comfort thread of why people are going in the first place? And I
Without
find
a
that
doubt. Yep.
that you kind of hit on
If you
that.
think of the timeline, even think of it further, right? If you
Yeah,
had parents that brought you to Dave and Buster's as a kid, and then as a young adult, you come with friends and enjoy whatever you might enjoy, alcoholic beverages, games,
yeah,
whatever. And then as you progress, like I mentioned, to the family, and then you start having kids, it's that cycle that is
totally.
obviously important to us. But the key is, right, two really components. You still have to sprinkle in innovation, right? Because if we say the same as your experience when you're 10 years old to the time you're 30, we might get a little dated, right? So that's
Yeah,
something we're always thinking about, whether it's the look and feel, how you interact with our team. And I think the second component is driving the component of hospitality forward, right? Everything
yeah,
that we do has to be driven around the guest experience. However you do that, whatever interaction you have, our goal is to, really continue to build a hospitality culture within our four walls, because again, there's tons of mom and pops out there that have tried to emulate bringing food, beverage, and games under one roof, right? Some successful, some not as successful, and they just can't grow and scale at a certain rate. But we know with that combination of continued innovation, continued, kind of culinary growth, and on top of that, you balance that with just great hospitality. And when I say hospitality, the differentiator for me, service is a skill set, right? So the tactics, the blocking and tackling versus hospitality being a mindset. So that's what we look for when we bring new team members in. I'm not necessarily looking at your background, how much experience you've had either serving, bartending. What I want to know is, do you have the ability to engage with the human across from you? Do you smile? Do you just have a warm presence around you? Because we can teach you everything else that you need to know, because people, the human connection is just so important. And that's what really our culture and our hospitality focus is just finding great people to take care of our great guests.
Do you know, that's so interesting you say that. Like, I had a French guy on the podcast there last week, and director of ops at Aman Hotel Group. That's kind of very fancy 5-star hotel. And he said the exact same thing, which is like, you can you can teach people the skills to be in the operation, in the restaurant, on the floor. But we were laughing because we used the phrase je ne sais quoi, when it comes like, do people have, like, what is it? How do you look for, how do you isolate? What is that, like, untouchable, that intangible that makes someone really good at hospitality, like that can smile, that's able to go up and give that extra 5 seconds to ask somebody like how they're doing in the restaurant, how they can like see kind of something before it happens. What when you think about it, how do you when you train your team to go look for those? Because you've got your what do you call it, OpEx team? What did you call it again? You call it the operations?
Yeah, operations excellence. Yeah,
operations excellence. So you're obviously trying to like teach your team how to look for that like level of like operational excellence. Are there like indicators, like besides just the sort of like, it's hard to describe, but when you see it, are there indicators for like personality that you look for?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of that energy you feel, right? I mean, I think generationally, right, a little bit different workforce. Your first question around some roadblocks. Yeah, of course, staffing is always a challenge, right? There's just so many more options. There's different ways for younger team members to kind of make a living, right? Whether it's driving for Uber or doing some different things, right? Kind of hodgepodging different professions together to make a living and kind of live out their best life, however they look at that. But I think it's as simple as something that we've coined, and this has been around since 1982 when Dave & Buster's, really stood up the first Dave & Buster's restaurant and store in Dallas, is what we refer to as the 10-5 rule. So within 10 feet of every guest, you should make eye contact, smile, acknowledge the guest, and within 5 feet, it's a verbal acknowledgement. Welcome to Dave & Buster's. What brings you here? Have you been here before? Really trying to wayfind and help. And I think, honestly, sometimes it's easy to get so blown out of proportion of all the tech, all the different things coming at you. Oh, this offer, this promotion, right? And if you just get back down to the basics of really why people come to Dave & Buster's, that's to let loose and have fun, right? And kind of leave any of your stresses or problem or anxiety at the door and have a great time. So my message to the team is, right, find warm individuals that are adding to the guest experience, not taking away from somebody's, kind of getaway. Because again, we're a destination. Let's call it what it is. It's, our guest traffic is, just kind of a round number twice a year, right? So it's not like, it's not transactional at all. And we know that. And we have to, that when we get those guests in the door, we certainly have to wow them with the experience to bring them back.
Well, like I was saying to you before we hopped on, I mean, I had a sensational experience at Dave & Buster's down in Daly City. So I speak super highly for the time that I went anyway.
It's Saramonte Center. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a net promoter.
That's a busy mall too, right? Hard to find parking, hard to do a lot.
That's so funny. But you know what? Okay, you actually triggered something in my head there as well, which I think is interesting, which is like you spoke about like like finding like the warm people, okay? And so, one of the things I've definitely heard over, say, like the last 2 years since COVID has kind of come to its sort of eventual end,
Oh, you
which
said
is
you
like,
said it. That's the first time we've said that word. So it's a
we
bad
finally got
word,
it.
right?
It's
Yeah,
finally
you just
got
try to.
it.
It's in the past. It's in the past.
You're trying to finagle it in. But I think a lot about, like, because I think about it not in the context of like, oh, what a traumatic period it was, but more like since then now we had a gap of like kind of like training years for a lot of, say, like Gen Z teenagers who would have had, say, their first jobs
Sure.
and didn't have them. And so we have kind of and then we had a lot of, like, say, more kind of senior management, kind of like general managers leave because, they have families to feed and they're kind of older in terms of hourly. So like we had a lot of them leave. And I'm curious, in terms of like, what has kind of changed in your mind in the kind of workforce, say, since COVID, in terms of like their demands or in terms of their behaviors? Are there things that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think a couple things. Let me just start with that. That was a really tough time on the overall
Yeah.
hospitality industry, right? So for colleagues and other brands out there, I give kudos, right? Because everybody had to navigate that scenario a different way. And
Yeah.
there was no script, there was no playbook to do that. So I think some companies handled it really well, some didn't. But I think at the end of the day, I think everybody's intentions were there to continue to, hopefully not only take care of their team, but offer, kind of solace in a destination to come and enjoy. And, certain regions, as you're aware, you lived in San Francisco, were much more challenging than, say, where I'm
Yeah.
at in Texas, right? It just different, different philosophies, different approaches to, geographically. What we've found coming out, and let me tell you this too. I feel, Alex, that it allowed Dave and Buster specifically to level set and
Yeah.
to take a step back, reevaluate the way in which not only we were structured from a store support center perspective, but how we work to deliver the guest experience. So again, I wouldn't want to go through that again by any
Yeah.
means from a brand perspective, just from an overall business, and just kind of fluidity of things that we were able to do with opening and doing some different things. But it did allow us to take a look back, identify things that were working. I think identify things that weren't. Part of my role and my responsibility for my department is not necessarily continually implement new things, whether it's technology, process, training, whatever it is. But again, take a look at some of the tools that we already had in the field to allow our teams and re-educate them on how to maximize those tools.
Yeah.
To answer your initial question is what did we see in terms of workforce? Without a doubt, less experience, less, quite a few folks getting out of this industry, going into kind of retail or, different industries that are a little bit what they saw at that time were more sustainable or, not quite as risk adverse as being in kind of the food and beverage side. So we're aware of that. We see that, right? But that also gave us the opportunity that we knew we had a lot of new. So we really had to focus on how we trained them, how we onboarded them, to get them to a certain level to be able to deliver to the expectations that, we had come to know over those at that point, I guess 38 years, when COVID hit. So yeah, different challenges, right? But I really think it gave us, our brand, a chance to level set. Coming right out of COVID, we had, some great success. We obviously had the chance to acquire Main Event Entertainment in the summer of 2022. So that grew our brand from not only, the 150 plus that you mentioned. We also picked up the 50 centers that they bring to the table. So we're now operating over 200 units, and just, finding synergies left and right. And I think that's what it's all about is, driving efficiencies without that focus without losing the focus of hospitality and really hopefully delivering, an experience that you had a chance to experience a couple weeks back in Daly City.
Yeah. It's interesting. And like, I hear a lot of people operators like yourself, like when it's like, what's that kind of, I don't like, and I really try to like refrain from like that Gen Z versus millennial versus like
Sure.
Gen X or whatever. It's like, oh, Gen Z don't really work. And it's like, no, like, but what I find and what is very interesting is like, and especially because that COVID break, to your point, to use that phrase like reset, how like brands, restaurants communicate. Sorry, my something just went off there on my screen. How brands like communicate or companies communicate with their employees in and of itself, like meeting that employee where they're at. Because ultimately, like talent, it seems to me from what I hear from everybody, is so hard. Like talent is like, how do we find the right talent and how do we groom the right talent to like be potential leaders within our organization? You think a lot about sort of like retention, and there's an entire like kind of like, I don't say class of people, but like tranche of people that are going to come in, and it's like they don't look at notice boards. They want to be texted. There was somebody I had on recently.
There you go. That's a great example. That recently came up. So we changed. We're going through a full ERP upgrade, and we've recently moved to Workday from a HRIS perspective, and it's so funny. You just gave that example, right? Our old system, we would email, and what I'd hear over and over from the field is they don't even know what their email address is, let alone their password, right? They want a text message, they want things in real time. So definitely a learning, right? When I started with this company, I was young. That was a long time ago, right? So I have a family, I have kids. All really developed because of Dave & Buster's. I met my wife through Dave & Buster's. I have 3 boys that are all due to Dave & Buster's. So much to be thankful for, but they're different, right? I have a 17, a 15, and a 12-year-old. The way I communicate with them is much different than I'm sure my mom and dad communicated with me when I was that age, right? It's just evolution at its finest. And I think, and I don't really categorize generations that way. Yeah. I don't do that. I think you have to be quick to identify how that individual retains, how they prefer to be communicated to, and really what they're looking for in terms of development. And they're vocal. I feel like, the younger kids, and regardless of generation, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there, right? So I think not only finding great people, but is how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them focused on what the future could be for them and for the company, without other companies out there kind of dangling carrots to pull them away. And totally. I think that's probably the bigger challenge, right? Because there's a lot of shiny objects out there. There's a lot of attractive, of course, the grass isn't always greener, right? You hear that all the time, but when you're young and easily influenced, it's hard to keep them. So I think establishing trust, establishing clear communication, establishing, levels of accountability for our team. I think regardless of the generation, people want to know how they can impact, not only themselves, but, the success of that specific location or the brand as a whole.
And that speaks a lot to like your company's culture, like as in when I hear you say like accountability and giving opportunity, they kind of like those two mix in particular. It's like, why would somebody stay? And do they feel comfortable enough to be accountable and be like, make other people accountable for the success of the organization? It sounds like you've really dialed in it. Like you guys have really dialed in your culture. I mean, 44 years in business. I mean, clearly there's obviously a culture there. I've been there and it's awesome. But like, at the same time, it's like you've really dialed it in. I guess like, how do you think about your process for maintaining that as you guys kind of scale? Because you can scale a process, Correct. Like everyone's seen the Founder movie where he's walking on the tennis court doing the process,
Sure.
But it's like, how do you scale the culture is like a separate challenge. And like, I guess that's very much under your remit.
Yeah. It's hard, right? I mean, I don't think there's any, again, playbook around that. I think what's important, and I think from a leadership perspective, and I'm very simplistic when I think of this, is every day you have to model the behavior, right? Regardless of what level you're at in the organization. And, I hold that near and dear to my heart, right? I started as a 21-year-old kid at that point, not knowing anything. But what I will tell you is that along my path, so many different people, right, have poured into me, spent time with me, took me under their wing, you name it, to hit all those different things that you talked about, right? Accountability and how do you help build culture, and what can you do to kind of lead by example to bring others along, is the key, right? There's no silver bullet to building culture. I always think it's funny. I guess I shouldn't say use the word funny, but it's interesting when I see people lead with culture.
Yeah.
Because again, if you force culture, what the end result typically is. I think culture is truly organic, and it starts with the leadership. And that's what I'm so impressed with. Our leadership today is, they'll be the first ones out there to roll up their sleeves and get in the trenches with the teams. They're the first one to high five. They're the first one to take pictures, right? Like, I mean, just leading kind of that fun, engaging model that is really Dave and Buster's, and that passes down. It's not overnight. It takes a little bit of time, but I really feel like really leading from the front is the key. And I talk to young managers all the time that are overly eager, right, to get to the next level, and they want to take on more, and they want to take on more. And I think just balancing them, right, because this ride is there's ups and downs in this industry, right? There's seasonality, there's ebbs and flows, there's a macro environment that can impact you. But I feel if you come with a purpose to just make somebody next to you better and allow them to grow, allow them to fail, help them, in that realm, I think that's how you build trust in your culture, and that just naturally allows other people to gravitate towards it.
Yeah, like it's very interesting to hear you say that, in the sense that, like, because when I hear, like, the example of what I'm thinking of is, like, like the best employee brands are like almost like the self-referential ones, in the sense that, like, your employees will like beg, borrow, and steal for their friends to come work there, and it sounds to me like you kind of have that, because you did at the very beginning of the call, when I said challenges, you actually said it was technology and not staffing. And I know staffing is always a problem for everybody, but it's funny you didn't lead with that. And then when I hear you talk so cogently and talk so, like, articulately about, like, what makes up the Dave and Buster's brand there, it sounds to me like that you guys have such a strong brand that, like, even like your hourly staff are like recommending their friends and people they know to come work there. It sounds like it's really
Absolutely. Absolutely, right? Because I think, if we're friends and we enjoy our time together, right? Why would you not want to have somebody beside you, delivering hospitality, delivering great times? And at the same time, there's already an instant level of accountability, right? If I'm sticking my neck out for you to come in and get a job, the chances of you just, going AWOL and not showing up one day or calling in sick, I mean, are less, right? Because you have somebody to answer to, being one of your buddies. And we see that all the time throughout our buildings is, families, friends, just creating kind of that internal family within the four walls of our stores. And there's too many stories to even tell over the 40 years. I mean, it's really cool what you see. And I have team members in Dallas that have been around 35 years. It's just amazing, right? This is home for them. And that's remarkable, especially in this industry. You just don't see that kind of tenure.
Totally. And it's interesting as well, not to like rehash COVID as well, but they all stayed even during and after COVID. I heard that a lot from, one of our advisors is like the CEO of Earl Enterprise in Florida, and they own an entire portfolio of different restaurant chains. And he made that exact point to me about 6 months ago when I was chatting with him, a guy called Michael Beecham, and he was saying that, like, like, say Planet Hollywood was one of his, and like they saw basically zero turnover during COVID because the staff had been there for so long that they were basically like all in it together kind of vibe. And I guess like just that is a visceral, tangible impact of culture right there. Where your staff survive and row in the same boat, given the extraordinary macro challenge that represented.
And that's what I loved, right? You saw the strength of a company through COVID.
Yeah.
Right. Good, bad, and different. I mean, I think that really showed. And again, it wasn't easy for anybody, regardless of which way you approached it. And nobody knew what they didn't know during that time. But I think that really showed during COVID is just how quickly you could ramp back up and get people back once you were able to open the doors, or how you did it with modifications, or how the spacing, all those different
Yeah.
things that kind of threw us for a loop. But yeah, it was remarkable. We came out just gangbusters. It was great to see. And not only our team but our guests, right? Our guests were chomping to get back in and experience and have some fun and forget about the real world for a little bit. So yeah, I think having that internal culture that is developed is something I'm very prideful of. It took me through my journey again. I mean, I'm about 21 years all in, and it's just everything, every day something new, right? Some days better than others, but it's we still have the opportunity to serve our team members to again come back to our North Star, which is delivering that guest experience.
I mean, I can't think of a better note to finish the podcast on that.
Nice.
That's all right. All right.